Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is no secret to anyone in America that the middle class of our country today is struggling, that while millions of American workers are now working longer hours for lower wages than they did in some cases 30 or 40 years ago. We're looking at a 40-year decline of the middle class, that almost all of the new income being generated today is going to the top 1%, and tragically the United States has the most unequal distribution of income and wealth of any major country on earth. But the issue, Mr. President, is not just for the middle class right now or for working families. The issue of the economic crisis that we're in significantly impacts senior citizens and children, the most vulnerable people in this country. My hope always has been that as a great nation we will not turn our backs on the children of America, but year after year that is exactly what we do. We continue to have millions of children living in poverty. In fact, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. Almost 20% of our kids live in poverty. We have about 1 out of 4 children in America who get their nutrition from the food stamp program. And I worry very much about the future of this country if we cannot stand with the children of America, if we cannot make sure that parents, working parents all over this country, have high-quality, affordable child care, which is certainly not the case right now, despite the fact that virtually all psychologists recognize that the most important years of a human being's life are 0 to 4, but our child care system is a disaster. But it is not only the children that we have turned our backs on. Increasingly, we are turning our backs on senior citizens as well. And it has distressed me for a number of years to be hearing many of my Republican friends and some Democrats talking about the need to cut Social Security. Cut Social Security. And there are various schemes that are out there. Some of them have to do with the so-called chained CPI, which would reformulate how we determine cost of living adjustments for seniors, meaning, in fact, over a period of years, significant reductions in what seniors and disabled veterans would get. And I have worked in opposition to that concept for years, and I think we've beaten it back, but I have no doubt that it will resurface again. There are folks who want to cut Social Security, and in my view, we have got to do everything that we can not only to defeat that proposal, but what we have got to begin talking about is how we expand Social Security benefits, because today the kind of benefits that millions of seniors get is simply not adequate for them in terms of giving them the income they need to purchase the medicine that they require, food that they need, heating their homes in the wintertime, and other basic necessities. In terms of Social Security, Mr. President, let me be very clear. Despite what folks on TV may be saying and some politicians may be saying, let us be very clear. Social Security is not going broke. Let me repeat. Social Security is not going broke. Today, Social Security has a surplus in the trust fund of $2.76 trillion. A surplus of $2.76 trillion, and can pay out benefits to every eligible American for the next 19 years to the year 2033. So anyone who comes forward and says Social Security has gone broke, it is just factually not true. Social Security can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 19 years. And then we hear the argument, well, you know, we have a large deficit. Social Security is one of the causes of our deficit and our national debt, and that is absolutely inaccurate. Social Security has not contributed one nickel to our deficit or our national debt, because Social Security, as every worker in America knows, is independently funded through payroll tax contributions from workers and employers, 6.2% from each, and it does not receive funding from the federal treasury. So, A, it's not going broke, B, it's not contributing to the deficit. But I will tell you this about Social Security. In an incredibly volatile economy, stock market goes up, stock market goes down, Social Security, from its inception 79 years ago, through good economic times and bad economic times, Social Security has paid out every nickel owed to every eligible beneficiary with minimal administrative cost. Social Security is not an investment program. You can invest money on Wall Street, sometimes you do well. You can invest money on Wall Street, sometimes you lose your shirt. Social Security is a social insurance program. It has never failed one American in 79 years. That is a pretty good record. But even with Social Security being strong and solvent for the next 19 years, we have to recognize that we do have a retirement crisis in America today, and I fear very much that the appropriations bill just passed the other day, which will allow pensions for millions of workers to be cut, is only going to exacerbate that problem. Today in America, only 1 in 5 workers has a traditional defined benefit that guarantees income in retirement. Mr. President, amazingly enough, and when you want to talk about anxiety among the American people, stress among the American people, why people are angry, why they are fearful, over half of all Americans have less than $10,000 in savings. Stop and think about that. If you have less than $10,000 in savings, an automobile accident, needing a new car, can wipe you out. An illness can wipe you out. A divorce can wipe you out. So you got millions and millions of Americans who are sitting there wondering, how are they going to retire with dignity when they have $5,000, $8,000 or less in savings? Mr. President, when we talk about Social Security, here's the importance of Social Security. 2/3 of senior citizens today depend upon Social Security for more than half of their income. 1/3 of all seniors depend upon Social Security for at least 90% of their income. So when you talk about cutting Social Security, understand that 1/3 of seniors depend upon Social Security for at least 90% of their income. This is not extra money. This is not fun money. This is life and death money. This is the money that people need to buy medicine, food, keep their homes warm in the wintertime. Now, Mr. President, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but the truth of the matter is that the percentage of seniors living in poverty in America is going up, In 2011, the official senior poverty rate was 8.7%. Last year, the official senior poverty rate was 9.5%. That's a pretty significant increase in senior poverty. But if you look at the Census Bureau's more comprehensive measure of poverty, which takes a careful look at the out-of-pocket medical costs of seniors, the poverty rate for seniors is even worse. According to this supplemental poverty measure from the Census Bureau, the real senior poverty rate in America is actually 14.6%. What that means is that 1 out of 7 seniors living in America last year could not afford to meet their most basic needs. Mr. President, the average Social Security benefit today is just $14,000 a year. And as someone who will be the next ranking member of the Budget Committee, I intend to do everything I can, not only to oppose vigorously any efforts to cut Social Security, I'm going to do everything that I can to expand Social Security benefits. And, in fact, the best way to expand Social Security is to ask the wealthiest people in our country to pay more into the system by scrapping the cap on income that is subject to the Social Security payroll tax. Mr. President, as you know, right now, a billionaire pays the same amount into Social Security as someone who makes $117,000 a year. You got a multimillionaire here, somebody's making $50 million, somebody's making $117,000. They both contribute the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. This is regressive, this is unfair, this is absurd. If we lifted this cap and applied the Social Security payroll tax to income above $250,000, not $117,000, but $250,000 a year, we could not only extend the solvency of Social Security for decades to come, which is what we want to do, but we could also provide the resources necessary to expand Social Security benefits. And that is exactly what we should be doing, and that, in fact, is what the American people want us to do. Mr. President, an August 2014 poll by Lake Research Partners asked likely voters if they support the idea of, quote, increasing Social Security benefits and paying for that increase by having wealthy Americans pay the same rate into Social Security as everybody else, end of quotes. And interestingly, this is what the poll found. 90% of Democratic voters said they support the idea, and 75% strongly support that idea of lifting the cap. 73% of independent voters support that idea. 55% strongly support it. 73% of Republican voters support that idea. 47% strongly support it. So there is, for that idea, enormously strong support across the political spectrum, Democrats, Independents, Republicans. Mr. President, sadly, despite this overwhelming support for expanding Social Security, the CEOs at the Business Roundtable — the Business Roundtable is the organization representing the largest corporations in America — they came out with a plan last year which does exactly what the American people do not want to do. American people want to expand Social Security, and the Business Roundtable came out with a plan that would increase the Social Security retirement age from 67 to 70 and severely cut the COLAs, cost of living adjustments of senior citizens and disabled veterans. Mr. President, the Congress and the Senate here have got to make a very fundamental decision, and that is, do we listen to the American people who are hurting today, to seniors who have worked their whole lives but who just cannot get by in what in many cases are meager and inadequate Social Security benefits? Do we listen to them? Do we stand up for and with the people who helped build this country, who worked the farms, who worked in our factories, who served us in the armed forces? Do we stand with them and expand Social Security, or do we listen to those on Wall Street and corporate America who want to cut Social Security benefits and in some cases want to privatize Social Security? This is a huge issue for tens of millions of Americans. And, Mr. President, I intend to do everything that I can, not only to resist cuts to Social Security, but to do everything that we can to expand Social Security benefits for for those seniors and disabled vets who desperately need that expansion. And with that, Mr. President, I would yield the floor.